Hello and welcome to the Alpha Anywhere demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software, and I'm pleased to be joined by Dion McCormick, no relation, our Solutions Engineer, as well as Sarah Mitchell, our Head of Documentation. Today, Dion will be going over, I believe, custom controls, part 2 of a two-part series. He'll also be here to answer your questions. You could type those questions into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. So let's get started. Hello, Dion. Are you there?
Yes, I am. How am I coming through?
You're coming through great. Thanks. Let me go ahead and make you the presenter.
So thank you, everybody. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. As Dave mentioned, we're going to have some fun times and follow up on our custom control. A lot of buzz out there on that. It's really going to have legs and do a lot of really cool things. And as we've talked about before, this is part of the new release of Alpha that just came out a little while ago. Been very pleased with the release and very stable, working great. Got it actually in a couple production environments and feeling good about that. So today we're going to follow up on that. But as we always do, we encourage you to go to the Q&A section of your GoToWebinar control panel and put in any questions you have on the presentation itself or other questions you might have that are burning in your mind, because we like to try and help you any way we can. And along with that, just remember at guides at alphasoftware.com, Guides at Alpha Software. It's a good place for you to call and send us, not call, but send us requests and questions and things like that. It's a really handy email to know. So keep that in mind and please feel free to use that. So before we dive into it, I did want to go in and just remind everybody we have Devcon 21. We're already in April. We just, boom, we're now in April. Crazy. First quarter done, into the second quarter. And so this is coming up very quickly. We are working on it. It's going to be a fabulous event. There's so many cool things about what's going on with Alpha Anywhere, some really neat new features that are being developed by the team, but also a lot on Transform. I mean, there's an enormous amount of work that's going into the Transform platform, improving it, and a lot of significant changes coming down the road. So if you aren't already checking out the Transform Tuesdays, send us an email at guides@alphasoftware.com so you want to be signed up for that. And again, we got some really cool surprises coming down the road on Transform that are going to have a very big impact on making it easier and better to use that platform along with Alpha Anywhere. And remember, Transform is built on top of Alpha Anywhere. So as Transform improves, grows, and great, gains more capabilities, at the same time, underneath the covers, a lot of Alpha Anywhere capabilities are being developed to support that. So it's very exciting. So with that, make sure you go to Devcon 2021, click on Buy Now, get your registration. It's cheaper now, but it gets more expensive as we get closer to that event. So I highly recommend keeping that cash in your product pocket that you would normally spend if you waited till the last minute by registering now using an early bird pricing. And I think you'll really enjoy it. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and jump into our demonstration. But before I do that, let's do a quick walk through memory lane. So we're going to talk about a new feature that's part of the new release. This is not pre-release. This is actually in the system, called custom controls. And custom controls for me is very, very exciting. It's going to allow us to do the following. One is, now you're not limited to what's in the box with Alpha Anywhere. You can create your own controls. Actually, there were methods before to create your own controls, but it was very torturous and it was very, you had to kind of be a super.
Dion, can I ask you to repeat the last 30 seconds? We seem to have an email problem happening with GoToWebinar today.
So you've always had the ability to build custom controls before, but it was very torturous and really was for not the faint of heart, so it really never took off. This new technique is far simpler and easier, as we demonstrated last week, and we're going to expand on today. So this allows you to roll your own controls and also build controls to share with other developers, your team, etc. This will also start promoting more reuse, meaning that you can encapsulate capabilities into a control that you can just drop on any project that you want. So let's say you had like a really cool feature that you know that you'd be using on multiple different systems or projects. You can reuse those very easily within the system and in a reliable standard. It allows you to leverage your knowledge. If you're more expert, you can create these controls and share them with the community. And most importantly, it's a neat way to extend the core Alpha Anywhere. Thus, we're not limited to just waiting till the Alpha Anywhere development team, who do amazing work and do an enormous amount of effort. But this allows you to kind of take control of that and start extending it yourself instead of just having to wait to see what came out of the factory there. So we did a demonstration last week where we kind of showed a very simplistic version where basically you just had some static HTML that you could make dynamic and make driven from there. This week, we're going to do something a little bit more visual, a little bit more interesting by just leveraging some off-the-shelf CSS information. And as I mentioned, take the time to, if you have any questions through this, if I go too quick or anything else, go to the questions area of the GoToWebinar control panel, jump in there and show us from there. So I'm going to jump over and let's see, there we go, and open up my environment here. So actually, I'll open up this first. Okay. So I was on, I was saying, hey, you know what? I would love to be able to have my own super cool card kind of control. So it's maybe a little hard to see here, but let me zoom this in a little bit. You know, a card control that has got, you know, a cool looking feature like that. But, you know, and you could create that and manually put it into your, but let's say I'm going to have 5 or 6 in my project or use them in different places. Well, I want to make it really easy to basically create my own cool card control as a custom control and leverage it in my project very simply. So what we're going to do is go through the process of how to do this, show a few of the nuances so you're used to it, and then you're going to be able to take this skill set and apply it immediately to many other situations. And what's really cool is things like this are really available on the internet. There's so much great content that's out there. And as you can see, you can bring in and create very cool user interfaces with a minimal effort and be able to use custom controls to be able to leverage it across 1 to many projects that you may have. So I found this one particularly on freefrontend.com, out on their card control. And you can actually go in and you can see they actually provide you with this, with a editing environment where it kind of shows you what it looks like. So as you can see, it's pretty simple. Is there some HTML here and some CSS here. There's no JavaScript involved with this card control. It's purely a CSS implementation, which actually makes things pretty easy for us. We will do a little JavaScript in terms of the implementation of this in the custom control in a few minutes, but there's no JavaScript that's really required to be as part of this. So really, if you take this HTML and you take the CSS included on an HTML page, you get this cool little card control with this little animated effect, everything's really neat there. So that's my starting point. I found out sort of a template for what I'd like to install. Now, the way I want to make this more powerful is you can see in here you have a card title, some text, a different picture, etc. And if you go over to the HTML over here, you'll see that there's the card title, there's some text, and then you can put in different like an href, etc. So the idea when I do my control, I want to be able to drop this in, but I want to make it super easy for me to modify this card without having to touch HTML, CSS, or JavaScript or anything. So my first step is to like to integrate into a custom control, get to understanding of what it is, how it works, and now I'm ready to go into alpha and start building that in there. And so step how to go through that process. And so with that, we're going to jump over there. Real quick check, is the video and audio coming through okay now?
Yeah, so far so good.
Okay, good. I kind of shut down some background processes, so
Yeah,
I think that helped out
it
from
was
there.
a little bit.
So I'm going to go into alpha.
But we can hear you. How about that? Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to start by creating a new web component, and I'm going to use my UX. And think of this as my design environment and click OK. So I create with a UX because I'm going to create my sort of my custom control template in here. And then I'm going to use that after I published it in another UX from there. But you always kind of start from here because the custom control is built on the ViewBox technology. So once I have my UX, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to search for ViewBox. So I'm going to find, and I'm using the handy dandy hand add control, which saves you a lot of clicking around trying to find stuff, and click view box. And I'll just call it anything you want. There's nothing special about the name of view box. It can be anything you want. And click OK. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. And I'm going to call this as CC card example webinar. Okay. So now I've saved that. Now I can actually go in and start building my custom control structure. And remember, it's 2 steps. One is you use the view box to create the custom control. Then you go through a secondary step, which actually saves it as a custom control that can be accessed in your development environment. And we'll also talk a little bit about how you would go about sharing that capability. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the view box here. And as we mentioned last week, we want to start with sort of a templated view box. And luckily, the development team has already provided that for us, so we don't have to do a lot of manual stuff. So once you've opened up the view box builder, your first step is to go down here to load sample view box. As we mentioned last week, there are tons of great view box examples that I would highly recommend playing with them because it gives you an idea of how these things work. But the one I'm using is at the bottom, which is a template for a user-defined custom UX control. So there's this template that's pre-created, ready to go, that once you create a view box, you select that, and I'll do that now. And it's gone ahead and set it up. It's done a few things. First is that it created a source or static JSON with some default properties to give you an idea of how you build properties. And we're going to come back to this in a little bit and add our own properties in, but I'm going to leave those as they are for right now. So that's step number 1. And what's important about this is that when you actually use your custom control, the idea behind it is that these are the properties the user can change when they add a control to a UX or modify it. So this is your way to set parameters for your control to be able to control how the control works, or to guide how the control works. And you'll see that's how we're going to use it to make alterations to that card without having to actually touch anything inside the view box control. Okay, so we've done that. The other thing it's going to do is it is going to add in this view box layout, and that's just some predefined information there. Adds in this little piece of CSS, and last but not least, and most importantly, it added in the JavaScript. Now this is a ready to go basically view box that could be created into a custom control, and a very simple one where when this runs, it basically executes this my control function. It creates here some HTML to spit out, and then that is displayed. And as you can see, since we're using JavaScript, it has the ability to reference those parameters and dynamically generate this. And that's how I'm going to do it within my system, is how we do those pieces here. So now let's go ahead and do the following. I want to now modify this to actually use my stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do is, let's do the simple thing, which is CSS. So I'm going to go back into my web page here, and you can see here's a bunch of CSS that's used to create this thing. I don't know how any of it works, to be honest. It's magic for me. It's all this other stuff here. But the cool thing is I don't really need to care. So I can go ahead and copy this. Select all, yep, and then copy it. So it's on my clipboard. I go back in Alpha. I'm on my viewbox builder. I'm just going to go ahead and add that in there. Voila. I now have a bunch of CSS that's going to help me render this beautiful thing, and it's just there. I don't have to modify it or anything like that. And what's neat about it is that when this control is put onto a UX, like when I actually create a custom control, put it onto UX, this CSS is encapsulated in it, so it goes with it. So I don't have to worry about, oh, on that UX, I have to go in and link it to a CSS file or do a bunch of other kind of things from there. There may be some more sophisticated ways to do this, but this is kind of a simple brute force way, and it works from there. So that was my step number 1, is I've got my CSS. Now let's JavaScript again. You'll see that basically how this JavaScript works is that it pulls the information on what the value of this control is when it's running, and also this data, which is those fields that are in the data source here. Now that those are there, I can use them. But most importantly, it returns a combined HTML. So what's coming out of here is what that HTML is. So what we need to actually do is go get the HTML from our custom control or our regular control and have this JavaScript spit it out. Now, this may be where people get a little queasy because you have to kind of do some stuff, but I'll walk you through it. And once you've seen it once, it'll become pretty understandable. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna comment that out. And for people who are newer to JavaScript, it's // comments out that line. You can see it actually changes in the IDE to a blue color to kind of let you know that the system will ignore it. And you can kind of see out there. If you're doing multiple lines, you'll notice the other item is /*, then a bunch of stuff, and then */. The JavaScript engine will ignore everything between these endpoints or on an individual line with this / there.
Now,
so
Dion,
now I'm going to go
this
back.
Particular set of code, we should probably be sticking some semicolons at the end of at least that second line there. Is that correct?
I agree. This is defaulted. Who wrote this stuff here? The computer, stupid computer, dumb computer. No, you're right. Just for, I think it will
it
pretty good on that,
but it isn't good style. It isn't good form.
Well, and what's great about it is it at one time you really need it to work is when it will fail, and you just know. So it's better to,
that's how that works.
That's JavaScript is intelligent about that. It figures out when you're most vulnerable and then attacks that. It's like COVID 21, COVID JS or something like that. So okay. So let's go back here. Here is my HTML. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that. I'm just copying it verbatim from here and going into here. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to start coding a little bit. I'm going to say, let's call it HTML result is equal to, and I'm just going to paste that right here. Now, this will fail because really what we need to do is create this as HTML. So the way to do this is the following, is we're going to have to do a little editing where we go single quote, and then you go in here and you say HTML result is equal to, actually, I'm going to cheat and come back and do this right here. So I'm going to click OK. That is not legitimate. I've already done this work, so I don't want to waste everybody's time while you see me fumble around with it. I'm going to copy this right here. I'm going to copy that, and I'll come back and show you a couple other techniques. And I'll go back in here, and we'll go into my VB1, go back to the JavaScript, and I'm going to paste this here. Okay, and I'll call this HTML result. Okay, so what I'm doing is this. Since I have multiple lines, actually Alpha has this beautiful ability to basically put multiple lines into a variable, but JavaScript, for the life of me, if someone knows a better way, but every way I found to try and do multiple lines was a big pain in the tail and just was complicated. So the way it works is that each of these lines is one of those lines surrounded by single quotes, and then you'll see I have a plus sign. And then on the next line, I just surround the stuff with single quotes, and then I put a plus sign. So bottom line, what's going on is that when this spits out, it's going to be everything in here because I'm basically adding the stuff together. And so it's a little bit of a little grunt work to do that, but it works. And you know what, my guess is there's probably like a third-party library or something that may make this simpler. But the important thing is when this runs, I want it to dynamically generate this HTML so I can modify it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say return HTML result. Okay. So as you can see, this is static still. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Let's do a test run and see if this works properly. I've added the CSS. I've added the HTML and basically in JavaScript spitting it out in a static level. And so now we go in here. And there's our working preview. And check it out. And I'll come back and show you with that. So you can see, and it's got all the functionality. I have to do my bounding box, get rid of that, but you can see now I have essentially a custom control, but it is hard coded. So let's go back and look at the hard coding real quick and talk from there. But as you can see, before I go on to that, let's not, if you wanted to create your own custom control and it didn't have any dynamic text, you'd be done here. You drop that on your other UX, it will display what's exactly the hard coded in here. So let's go ahead and change this to card heading. Okay. So there we go. So the beauty of this is that you can now use very sophisticated techniques to generate your HTML and spit it out onto it. And as we mentioned last week, you can actually add other JavaScript functions in here that are pre-made that will interact with this. And that's really cool in a number of different ways there. So as I mentioned, this is kind of my first step. I've kind of created my custom control environment, or my test here, not my test, but my prototype. I have put in CSS, I put in the static, but that's kind of boring because the reality is that card is not always going to be the same. I want it to be different looking. So now what I want to do is integrate into it the ability to use my fields in here. So let's go to my data source, and I'm going to go into my data source, and my first property I want to add is that card heading. So I'm going to go card heading, colon, cool card, and then comma. Make sure you use, and you can reformat the JAWS, you can validate it to make sure it's correct. So it is the parameter name and then a default value. And you'll see there's number ones here. So now that I've added it to this static JSON here, if I go to my fields, you'll see I have a new field here called card heading. Now let's go back to our JavaScript. So as you can see in here, right here is where it basically would output my card heading. And as you can see, it's currently static text, card heading. So remember what happens is when this JavaScript runs, this line right here basically goes to the fields and loads up all those fields into this V variable. So now any field in my field, so there's a v.card heading, v.prop1, v.prop2, v.color, v.images. So now what I can do is I can go down here and now I can edit my JavaScript. Now we're using the plus, so I can just go close that, plus v.card heading, plus close quote, and get rid of the fifth tab. So all I'm doing is saying, when you build this HTML right now, when you get to this line, go ahead and add my card heading in there, making it dynamic. And you have to be careful that you put in the right things, etc. There's another technique I'll show you in a moment, which I like a little better than doing the pluses, because that can get confusing. It's more of a substitution kind of thing that I'll show you in a few moments. So now what's going to happen is when this runs, what will go on is that it's going to run this JavaScript, and when it runs this JavaScript, it's going to generate this HTML. During that, go look at what the field is for card heading and build it out. And let's go ahead and test that and make sure it works. Now remember, I have a default value called cool card or whatever it happens to be. So let's do working preview. Okay, now notice it's generated. I'll make this bigger in a moment, but check it out. It's automatically inserted cool card. So that's no longer hard coded in the system. So now we can go in and say, great, we've got that information. Let's go ahead and see how we'd use that. So let's say this is where, as far as I wanted to go. I mean, I'd probably, go in and make the dimensions and I mean, you could go in and change all of those elements, but we're going to stick to this because we want to kind of focus on the core process. So now that I've created this, I can now save this as a custom control. So I go down here to more. So I went back into my view box here. I go down here to more and I say save as custom UX control. So remember, all this happens inside this view box. Let's call it a prototype view box. And now that I've prototyped it, I want to save it out as a custom control. So I go down here, I select that. It's going to open up a panel for us. You're going to see my other ones I've done before. So now I'm going to call this cool card. And you can call it anything you want. I would come up with a naming scheme for how you want to do it, but I'm just going to call it cool card. Now, there's no existing definition because this is the first time I've done it, so I'm going to leave that alone. Now it allows me to select the icon. And what the icon is when you see it in the control, when you're developing, it will be that little icon next to the control that shows. Important on this is currently the only items that are allowed are built-in images, meaning you can't use SVG and other stuff from there. Let's go. So I'll select it. And there's pretty wide range of controls. You can see there's tons of them in here that you can do. And so I'm going to call, let's see if they have a card metaphor. That's kind of boring. Let's see. Oh, that one looks kind of interesting. We'll just use this one here. So that is going to be my little icon that I'm going to use for this custom control. Now I can go in here and write a description, you know, a little help text for someone who's using this control, maybe explanation of what the different parameters are, etc. And as you can see down here, it's showing me what are my different properties that we created. So the default ones are in there, which I'd probably get rid of, but you'll see we have our card heading in here. And as we've talked about, there are ways to, for instance, put in like a style builder or a color picker for certain things. So you can actually, when they are editing it, you'll see in a minute, it actually allows you a little bit more control to make it easy for someone. They don't have to put in a hex value. You can actually pop up a color picker and just do things along those lines. So let's go ahead and click OK. Oh, I'm sorry, I got to click out of here. So we've got our name of our control, the icon, a little description, and I'm going to click OK. Voila, my card control is now created and available. So I'm just going to go ahead and save this. Now, instead of testing it here, I want to go ahead and create a new UX. So I'm going to new web component UX. And now that comes up here. I can just go here to add control. Now I can type the word card. There's my cool card right there. And again, that's why you probably want to come up with a good naming for it, you know, so it's literal. So I can say, yeah, I want to use one of my cool cards. Now watch when I click and add it to the system. First, it's going to ask me for the name of this because I can have more than one of my custom controls. So I'll go cool card 1. And I'm going to click OK. So just like I would add any other one. Now this is where the cool stuff happens. Now that I've added that instance of this card on my screen, if I double click on it, notice what comes up. It opens up my property editor. And those are the properties that I added or created as part of this custom control. So you have the card heading and these other elements here. So I'm going to say this is my webinar card. And I'm going to change that from there. Okay. Now when I do a working preview, there's my cool card. Now I can use it anywhere I want. It's one of my standards. To edit the card, all I have to do is edit the parameters. So again, I'd probably modify what is the URL for the image, maybe this text down here. There's many different little things you can do from that standpoint. And you'll notice that when I brought in here, you notice that I didn't have to go in and set CSS. I didn't have to do a bunch of HTML editing. I just basically went in and said, you know, oh, it's a webinar card. That's crazy. Let's call this amazing card. Yeah, that's in. So now when I run it, instead of cool card or whatever I wanted to put in there now, it's called amazing card. And that also, by the way, there's ways of programmatically driving this. So you can actually set those values when you run to set the different values. So you can actually use Xbasic or JavaScript and other things like that to actually change this stuff on the fly, refresh it, do it. The sky is the limit. It's so cool what you can do from when there. And if I want another cool card, let's go ahead and add another cool card. Okay, and I'll call this cool card 2. And I'm going to get rid of that and get rid of that. Now for cool card 2, I'm just going to say cool card 2. And now I have 2 distinct instances of my custom control on the screen. And number 1 is amazing card. Number 2 is control card. And so you can see there's lots of things you can do from that standpoint. And this is a very simplistic kind of example, but now I've got that in my arsenal. Whenever I need a cool card on my screen to show information, I can literally pull it out of I don't have to go do any really hard work. I can just drop on and go. And that's why I'm so excited about this, is that you know, you're going to be able to create these kind of things, but also other people will be creating these things and sharing them, which will really expand the capabilities out there. Now, I want to cover one other thing before I open it up for questions. So now that I've created that cool card, when I go here to add control and do it, it's available here. But let's say I have a development environment on another machine, or I have a friend and I want to provide them this control. And this is where I think there'll be some improvements pretty soon on this. But in order to do that, I need to go back to my prototype card. I'm going to go back in there and I'm going to go more, save as custom UX control. So I'm back at this where I would do it. Now, if I want to update this card and restore it, I would click here, it would bring it up, and then I would click OK, and it would basically take my prototype with any changes I made and then recreate my custom control. So when you want to edit it, you have to kind of load it up in here and then retrieve the existing definition and then click OK, and it'll overwrite your current definition with the updates that you've made. Because once it kind of gets saved as a custom control, it kind of stays that way until, you know, you go through a process of replacing it. But where is it saving it to? Well, if you look on here in the lower left corner, you see that there's a blue item here called Manage Controls. When I click that, that basically opens up a directory on my local machine. And in that directory are a set of folders. So there's my cool card right there. So basically when I save the custom control, it creates a folder in here, and then the IDE, when it runs, it looks in that folder and says, oh, here's some custom controls, and then presents them to the user. They don't have to know where these things are. You do. So what you can do is, if you want to share this with someone else at this time, and Sarah, I know if there's any other ways to do this, but you would just basically take this folder, send it to the other person. They would then put that folder in the equivalent location on their particular machine. So there's a little bit of homework you need to do on there. But now once that is over on that other person's machine, they don't have to worry about it. And my guess is on the next version, there'll be an easier way to import and export custom controls, because that would facilitate this whole process.
Right. It would be great for people to be able to trade them, right? That would be very nice.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. Yep. And so that's the kind of stuff there. So again, when you're ready to share this, reopen up your Save UX Custom Control, click Manage Controls, and do this. And this works great. I tested it out with an associate of mine. I basically zipped up all my custom controls. They went there and unzipped it into their folder, and boom, they were off the races. It worked really, really well. And as you can see, I'm kind of taking the next step is I actually created a Git repository in this location. And so I can literally take these controls and put them into a Git repo, and then someone else on their side could clone that repo into their particular location here. And it allows you to, the system will put it in the right folder and stuff there. That's just for ongoing development. It seemed to be a simpler way to do it from there. So that is the new and improved demonstration showing how you can create these just fabulous custom controls. As you can see, actually when I did this, the two time consuming was finding the card I wanted. The other was when I was actually developing it, was just figuring out how to do this concatenation. Spend a little time figuring out how to get that work in there. And again, I think there's a better way to do it. By the way, once I have this,
which we'll go into in a second. Yeah.
Oh, good. I'll let you handle that there. I really would like, because this is very cumbersome. I mean, it's handy. By the way, one other thing I do, which is cool, is let me go back to the one I created. I used a little different method, is that I put in the static text, but in there I created my own little nomenclature, which was curly bracket, card title, curly bracket. And then I used a built-in function called replace. So you can take any string and do a replace. And what I do is I replace that bookmark with the value I want called card title. And then it just takes this. So now I don't have a whole bunch of pluses and have to edit there. I basically create this. So if I wanted to change, for instance, the text here, I'd put in a new one and then just do the replace here. So that's a little more elegant than the kind of hard-coded way I did today. But again, the biggest challenge was this here, and it sounds like we have a great way to do that. But those were the two time consuming. Once I got there, I was having a ball. It was really simple to do it, and now I can share it and do other things with other people. So with that, I'll open it up for questions, but more importantly, I want to hear a better way to do this.
When you said there's a great new way, but there's a better new way. So if you take a look in the chat window, I have pasted an example of how to do a multi-string in JavaScript. And all you do is you end your lines with backslashes. Then it knows to ignore everything and just go to the next line. And then at the very end, you close up those quotes, slap on a semicolon, and you're off to the races, as you would like to say.
Dave, I'm going to have to say, you can't do that here. Something about the way Alpha interprets this puts an extra slash. I tried, yeah. It actually comes out. It comes out like this is the first line / and then it throws a JavaScript area and nothing happens. So, but no, I mean you were on the right track, and I bet there's better. I bet there's a third-party tool of some kind that allows you to do this. But I'm really surprised there isn't a better way to do that. I mean, like Python has triple quotes. Alpha has caret string or whatever.
Percent string.
Okay, so this is what I'm going to do.
Your method is readable, at least. I'll tell you that.
I'm going to challenge our viewers here. Go out there and find a better way. Beat Dion at his own game. Show him how it's done. You know, and we'd love to hear any ways you have of doing that
today. But whoever comes up maybe with the first correct answer should win some sort of prize from Alpha, I believe. To be
now,
what do you think?
Yep. So yeah, we'd love to hear that from there. So that is the new, or sort of the second demo. It shows you, the first one was kind of interesting. I mean, you could change some text and throw this. This is actually more of a real world where you may want to have card metaphors in there. And this allows you to create those card metaphors and publish them as custom controls. And again, now when you need to use it, you just boom, put it on the screen, change the parameters, and you're done. And as I mentioned, we'll probably cover it next week. I don't have time today to do it. But how would you dynamically modify? So when we're on here, where is it? Oh, it's over here. Let's say, you notice I've kind of hard-coded this amazing card, but let's say I wanted to be able to click a button, which would change that and then refresh the card. So we'll go through and show you how you do that next time, because now you can actually take it to the next level where you can literally change the operation of your custom controls by merely setting parameters. So for instance, in my JavaScript in here, I can do some very sophisticated. So maybe I have two versions of the card. What I can do is say, well, if parameter A is X or whatever, show this type of card. But now I have something even more powerful, like a card type. And so you can see it just opens up a huge amount of capabilities. And if you can do that stuff on the fly, it makes it even simpler.
Could you use that for something like letting the user choose between a compact view and a full view of the card, that kind of thing?
Exactly. That's how I would do it. And really that would be, how does the CSS and HTML work? But yeah, it allows you to go in and you would do it either when you create the card by editing the parameters on creation and then it gets published. But I really want to show how you can use it dynamic, because that opens up a whole new range of things that are available to do.
Excellent. Oh, boy, we're getting a lot of people are writing in. We're gonna have to take a look after the webinar and see who got our little contest right. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we will. Your name will live in infamy. I mean, your name will be highly touted, and you know.
Not infamy. It's like infamy. That's the one.
I know.
Okay, terrific. So as far as what you covered today, I think that's it for questions. The one question that we had actually covered. You said, okay, that's great. I made one. How do I give it to my friend? And you said, here's the folder it goes into, and Alpha is probably going to do a better way of making that easier in the future. So let's go and see what other questions I've got. We had a couple good ones. Okay. Here's a person who has a tabbed UI, and they want to add an AJAX callback to an Xbasic function on that tabbed UI. So how do you go about doing that?
see, let's go to Tab UI Builder.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now, since
So
they
I got
didn't
my Xbasic
specify
functions here.
how the function would be called, maybe we'll just do it with a button, unless you have some other idea.
Yeah, well, remember a tabbed UI. Yeah, I guess you have a button here. So let's go ahead and put a button in here. And on here, I can create an AJAX callback, but I don't see it on here. So I don't even know if AJAX callbacks are supported on tabbed UIs. That may have to be a development question, because you notice in my action JavaScript here, I can't even find AJAX callback. Now, I think you could roll your own using the old school way of doing AJAX callbacks, but I don't have much experience. There's a good article.
When you choose the category AJAX callbacks in JavaScript, what do you get? Is it just blank? Inline JavaScript.
Just inline JavaScript.
Well, that's not good.
So hold on a second.
Right.
I do want to show you, and I've used this before.
Okay.
So it's paused. So let me find this here. In the olden days, before UXs and everything else, we were kind of web page oriented. So there was
right. So the AJAX technique started from web pages, not from this, a long time ago.
Yeah. I'm going to find a good article here that goes to. Okay, here we go. Okay. So this is an older article, and let me go ahead and copy that and put that onto the chat window. And it doesn't require action JavaScript. So how it works is this, and this was the original, and we basically just made it fancier. So we have page number 1, and you use a built-in alpha function called A5 AJAX callback, and then you give it the name of another A5W page. And then on that other page is purely A5 code, and it does stuff, and then it returns the AJAX response. So instead of building the function into the tabbed UI, you build it into a separate A5W page, and you would call it myfunction.ajax.a5w, and then use this function here called A5 AJAX callback, call it there, and you can pass in other data variables which will be available in your script. So if you walk through this article here, and I've used it on different things, it's really kind of handy to know. It was the original way of things doing, because basically on one web page, what you would do is you'd call another web page which would have code, and it would return data. And the cool thing about that is when you actually execute this A5 AJAX callback, it doesn't load that web page into the browser. It calls the server runs that page, and then just sends a message back to the calling function, or then the calling function then says, oh, I've got some stuff. And this AJAX response, you'll notice, is some JavaScript. So maybe it's executing some other action JavaScript, or it's creating an alert, or who knows what you want it to do. So this technique may be a way around the fact that there's really no AJAX callback built into the tabbed UI. What you would do is create a inline function to do like this. And so like, okay, I'll copy this here. I'll go back into alpha. I will add this as inline. Call that, okay? So now when this button is hit, it's going to run that. And then in your environment, you have that second page with your scripting that does whatever you want it to do. So that may be a workaround for you on the tabbed UI, but really handy in terms of how to do this stuff. So that's my guidance.
Excellent. All right, another question. There's a person who has been working on a project for a while, the same web project, and over time, you'd say, I don't need this UX, I don't need this graphic, I don't need this, that, and you delete it out from your project. But those files still tend to hang out in either published on the server or even just published on the same machine as the IDE, like in the working preview folders and in
they're like that. Zombie controls.
They're zombies, they're hangers on. So this question is, I want to clean those out. In fact, sometimes they've got conflicts because maybe I didn't publish something, but an old version was there and it's confused me. What's the trick? Maybe you can
Okay, so trick number one.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, no, go
is
ahead.
that when you delete something, let's say we delete this, let's delete it, and you go to restore deleted files, it keeps a copy of those things in there so you can restore them. But these are held out there. You can actually delete your deleted files off of your environment. So let me go ahead and open this up. And you'll see there's deleted, and this is where it's keeping those. So if you want to get rid of them permanently, you just go in, and I did that a little quickly, but you click this little folder icon that opens up your web project folder, go into deleted, delete them there. Now that deletes them permanently out of your environment there. Now I highly recommend, before you do any like this, you set up Git integration and make sure your stuff is on like a Git, repository, so that if you go, like a month from now, you go, I really shouldn't have gotten rid of that. You'll have some history of it. Or simple, just make a, go to the control panel here, go to Tools, Zip Workspace, zip up your workspace, and then just store that zip file somewhere to save you. Gets a little more elegant because you can search and stuff, but this is effective. You just zip up the state of the project right now, or of the whole workspace, archive it somewhere like Dropbox or Google or wherever, and then you can always bring it back and dig the stuff out when you need it. Now, as far as your environments, when I publish this locally, it's, let me go here. If I go to Tools and I go to, Web Projects, go to Web. Okay, so when I publish this, it's going to put it in C5A web root. So one way to kind of get rid of old stuff is just go to that web root, find the folder you publish this into, and just delete it. And then come back in the development environment and do a fresh publish. Thus, you will only have the current information available. And that will kind of clean out the history of your old stuff that you may have deleted here, but when you publish it, it doesn't delete the things on those files and recover them from there. Now, I'm not sure on IIS. I think IIS may automatically delete stuff and create a whole fresh one, but I have to check on that. Not sure on there. And that's the same thing, is that if you're now publishing this through FTP to your server, you would go up on that server, go into that folder, delete all the stuff on that folder, and do a refresh publish, and then you know exactly what is on your Alpha server up there from there. Now, Alpha Cloud, when you publish Alpha Cloud, it also will do kind of a clean install of your stuff up on that server.
If you don't publish it, it won't be there when you're done.
Exactly.
It'll remove stuff literally. Yeah.
Yeah. So Alpha Cloud's got a lot more sophistication in terms of how it manages that kind of stuff that's on me. But it's really just kind of a manual where you're publishing, go delete it, republish it, and then you'll be clean and you'll have a clean install.
What about the previews, like the live preview? Does that have a similar sort of thing?
Yeah. So again, if we go to Web Development Server, we go to C5A5 web root. So I'm going to go ahead and navigate there. Go to C A5 web root. You'll notice that there is a folder in there called Live Preview. And this is what it uses. And as you can see, Live Preview after a while gets really a ton of stuff on there.
Yeah.
So you can just delete the stuff out of Live Preview, and the next time you do it, it will load everything it needs to it. Now, when you do a Live Preview, make sure you do the full Live Preview, not the quick one. And the reason why is that will make sure that everything, including the secondary files, are put into Live Preview. Yeah. One other note to know about Live Preview is that, for instance, if your system needs like some JavaScript files or other things like that, you have to go in and make sure you put a folder that those things can access it, because it doesn't really do a full publish here. Now, there is a new feature in here, and let's see, where is that? Isn't it live test? Where is that? That may handle these kind of things, where it does a live test of it.
Remote test?
Which one? Not remote test. There's actually a new feature built into Alpha called live test. I'm not sure where that is. I'm not sure. Let's see. Okay, let me do something real quick. And that's something you may want to explore, because I'm finding live test may be the better way than live preview, because it tends to publish everything else you need around that one field. But let me go here. Okay, release notes. Let's go. It's kind of fun. There we go. I'm interesting. Web applications live. You can now perform a live test of your application on the development server, IAS, or Alpha Cloud. To start a live test, click the live test button in the web control panel.
Next to web security.
You have to be here.
There we go.
Here's live test here. And it'll give you some questions. Where do you want to perform this live test here? So let's do development server. And let's go ahead and just do index. This probably is, so we'll see. But notice it's doing the publishing stuff for me. It's got, now I got to have the server on and live test there. So it's like live preview, but it's better, meaning it does all the stuff for you. So check out live test. It's a newer, again, it's brand new in the newest release, and I think you'll enjoy it. It's got some really cool features. So I hope to gives them a little guidance in terms of how to clean up their stuff. Clean up your room.
Go clean up your room.
How many times you heard that?
Does it ever work? That's what I want to know.
No, if deaf ears, you're like,
I've never gotten
it's so funny. I mean, I've got 2 kids. It's, now I understand the concept of selective hearing, because like we'll be like whispering something and they'll go, what? And then you'll like yell at them to like do something, and they're like,
clean up your room. I didn't hear you.
I didn't hear you. I can't hear you. It's like,
I know what it's like. Well, I'm looking through it. It seems like we have gotten through today's questions.
Awesome, everybody.
5 minutes early, which is terrific. Why don't we give
I got some other meetings, so this is cool.
That last question.
Well, thank you everybody for joining.
Is there a way to extending the life of live test after it stops in like 15 minutes? That's a good question.
I think that has to do.
I think you have to keep restarting it though. Yeah.
I'm not sure, but also that may be the length of session that is on your server. So if I go back in here real quick and go to the tools or web development server.
Not for live test. I'm getting the official answer right here is coming in the channel from Sarah. There's no way to extend it, unfortunately. Okay. For live test. So just use it there, but you can't leave it running.
Yeah. I stand corrected. I was corrected even before I got it out of my mouth. It's like pre-crimes. Sarah's getting to the point where she's doing pre-crime stuff, where she's actually stopping my criminal advice even before it starts.
I think the term is thought crimes, and I believe that's from the book 1984.
Well, no, I'm thinking of Minority Report.
Or Minority Report. Oh, exactly.
Yes.
I love that.
They're like, you're under arrest for the future murder of XYZ.
Oh, that's terrific. Well, let's not squander our audience's time any further than we already have. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Dion, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank
and
you.
Sarah, thanks for standing by and giving us the correct answers. If you have more questions, go ahead and send them to guides, GUIDES, @alphasoftware.com. And we look forward to seeing you next Wednesday at the same time for another Alpha Anywhere demo and Q&A webcast. Take care and stay well.